Over the course of modern naval warfare, the submarine has been one of the most technologically advanced machines employed by worldwide navies. The ability to sneak past your enemy without them having the slightest idea of your presence has made these vessels a form of real-life superweapon. Despite the potential displayed by submarines and the invested interest of many nations in them, they were not widely deployed until the early 20th century. However, with conflicts like the Great War ravaging both land and sea, many advancements in submersible technology as well as modifications to enhance their military value would begin to crop up around the globe. In this video, we will turn our attention towards the land of the rising sun and their quest to merge the capabilities of another growing technology, the aircraft carrier, combined with the stealth of the submarine. If you clicked on this video, then you more than likely have an interest in warships. If that's the case, then today's sponsor, World of Warships Legends, is a perfect option for you. World of Warships Legends is a multiplayer naval combat game available for free on your PlayStation or Xbox gaming console. Just like the naval forces of the Second World War, you can choose between a variety of ship classes including destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers in PvP and the new PvE mode. Over 8 million players have already set sail with more than 400 different ships, with new content being consistently added like the 3 PvE war tales added in the most recent update. Try them out for yourself today and get a special free starter pack by registering using my link in the description or pinned comment and get the American Tier 3 Premium Battleship Arkansas, German Tier 3 Cruiser Karlsruhe, 7 days of premium account, 5 common crates, 10 red, white, and blue camos, and 10 hunter camos. Huge thanks to them for supporting this channel and to all of you for watching the ad. Now let's dive back into our main topic. It was April 1942, and just a few months prior, the Empire of Japan delivered the first strike that would begin the Second World War in the Pacific. As it is well known, the primary goal for the Japanese at Pearl Harbor was to effectively destroy the U.S. Pacific Fleet stationed there, particularly their capital ships such as battleships and aircraft carriers. While many ships were destroyed, the Japanese had failed to eliminate the American carriers and left the U.S. Navy with these powerful tools at their disposal. In a position of industrial and numeric inferiority to the United States, Japan heavily relied on the Kentai-Kessen Doctrine to defeat the Americans in one large decisive battle, as they would not be capable of winning a protracted war. This doctrine was seen in various projects, such as the construction of the Yamamoto-class battleships. However, other ideas were thought up within the higher-ups of the IJN. One such idea was developed by the commander of the Japanese Combined Fleet, Admiral Yamamoto, that being underwater aircraft carriers. These carriers were devised with the goal of taking the war from the waters of the Western Pacific to the continental United States. It was hoped that if these units were successful in their mission, then they would cause the United States to reduce its efforts in fighting the Japanese or end the war altogether. Aircraft-carrying submarines were nothing new to the IJN, with their workhorse submarines being the Type B-class cruiser subs, which held one seaplane in their watertight hangars and had significant range. These submarines will have their own video coming soon. However, despite their large size and hangar, they did not compare to the I-400s. What would become the class we know today was officially designated the Sentoku type submarine, which translates into special submarine, and design work was completed in March of 1942. The original design called for the boats to have a surface displacement of 4,550 tons, carrying 2 aircraft, which could be armed with a torpedo or 800-kilogram bomb, and a range of 40,000 nautical miles, which was significantly more than any submarine at the time. For example, the previously mentioned Type B class only had a range of 14,000 nautical miles. Eventually, the boat was made larger in order to accommodate 3 aircraft and their ammunition. The ultimate goal in mind was that 18 of these would be made, resulting in a true aircraft-carrying strike fleet capable of bringing the war to the American homeland. The resulting boat that was constructed in 1943 had a surface displacement of 5,223 tons, 6,560 submerged, with a length overall of 122 meters, about 400 feet, a beam of 12 meters, about 39 feet, and a draft of 7 meters, 23 feet. Compare this to the standard submarine of the US Navy, the Gato class, which was only 311 feet, 95 meters long, with a beam of 27 feet, 8.31 meters, and a surface displacement of 1,525 tons. For propulsion, the boats were equipped with 4 license-built MAN diesel engines that produced a total of 7,700 horsepower and gave them a top speed of 18.7 knots when surfaced and 6.5 knots when submerged. Due to the limitations at the time, despite being a massive submarine, they were still relegated to traveling on the surface when on long journeys, and as such had an impressive range of 37,500 nautical miles at a cruising speed of 14 knots, but a poor range of 60 nautical miles at 3 knots when submerged. In terms of submerging, the test depth was a maximum of 100 meters, 330 feet. As they were still submarines, the boats were equipped with 2 forward torpedo rooms that gave a total of 8 tubes with a magazine of 20 21-inch, 533mm torpedoes. For defense while surfaced, they were also armed with 1 5.5-inch, 140mm deck gun, along with 3 triple and 1 single 25mm AA mounts. Now to the aspect that was crucial to the boat's mission, their aircraft. Stored within the watertight hangar that measured 102 feet, 31 meters long, and 11 feet, 3.5 meters in diameter, were 3 Aichi M6A1 Seirin seaplanes. Being originally based on the carrier-based D4Y1 Suisei, there was a significant amount of work necessary to adapt it for use on a submarine. The most notable was the incorporation of folding wings. However, the planes retained the engine and general design from the later D4Y2. Due to the engine being water-cooled, a necessary preparation phase for takeoff where hot oil and water would be pumped into the engine was used so that it would be able to reach operating temperature quicker and expedite takeoff. Being able to launch planes as quickly as possible was of the utmost importance, and the crews of the boats were able to prepare and launch within 7 minutes. The planes could be armed with either 2 250kg, 551-pound, or 850kg, 1,874-pound bombs, or an 18-inch Type 91 torpedo. The submarines stored 4 torpedoes, 3 850kg bombs, and 12 250kg bombs. Each Seirin would be launched individually off of the 26-meter, 85-foot-long steam catapult situated forward of the hangar, which had space in the deck for attaching an aircraft's floats on either side. Following their mission, the planes were designed to land in the water next to the sub before being recovered and returned to the hangar. Back to the submarine itself, the immense size and incorporation of a hangar were not the only developments put into the design. Taking a look at the conning tower, we can see that they were equipped with German-made periscopes and snorkels that improve their effectiveness near the surface. Looking past these, you can immediately see some interesting shapes protruding from the top of the sail. The one that might catch your eye first looks like a giant horn. However, this was not used to make sound, but rather detect aircraft. This contraption is the 21GO air and surface search radar. The 2 other pillars with various rods protruding were the 2 antenna arrays for the 13GO air search radars, which were claimed to have a range of 43 nautical miles, about 80 kilometers. Finally, there was one E-27 antenna that was used to passively detect radar emissions, mainly from aircraft or surface ships. Another unique feature of the submarines was the application of a special coating which was supposed to absorb incoming sonar waves as well as dampen sounds from the interior so that it could not be heard by hydrophones. The coating was mainly applied in 3 layers from the waterline to the bilge keel, but was also seen on vertical parts such as the conning tower. Upon inspection by the United States following the war, it appeared that the coating attracted marine life, with an inspector noting that algae and other growth were particularly thick over coated areas. Now that we know the design and reasoning behind these beasts, what would come of the design? As stated earlier, a total of 18 boats were planned, with construction beginning in January of 1943 with the lead ship I-400. Later that year, I-401, 402, and 403 would be laid down, and in 1944, I-404 was laid down. However, the war would result in a terrible event for the Japanese Navy, the death of Admiral Yamamoto himself in April of 1943, shot down after his flight plan had been decoded by American intelligence. Following his death, the IJN no longer shared his vision for the decisive fleet of aircraft carrier submarines, and as such, the order was reduced to only 3. The ultimate goals of the I-400s were always eccentric, focusing on long-distance missions that would see the ships travel the world towards their targets in the United States. Some propositions saw potential attacks on Washington, D.C., or major cities on the West Coast, such as San Francisco. One of these potential missions was Operation PX, which was a planned attack on California with plague-infested fleas, similar to previous attacks on Chinese targets during the interwar period. As you may have expected, this mission was the brainchild of none other than Unit 731's director, Shiro Ishii. Also known as Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, this entailed I-400s using their sirens to drop the fleas with the goal of a mass outbreak within California. The plan was set to take place in September of 1945, however Japan surrendered in August and the mission never took place. Another planned mission was a daring raid on the Panama Canal, as it had the potential to have a more significant impact than attacks on the cities of the American West Coast due to its vital importance to the U.S. Navy. In December of 1944, the 631 Kokutai and 1st Submarine Division were formed to carry out the mission. The two I-400 class submarines, I-400 and I-401, were to sail with the Type A Mod 2 class subs I-13 and I-14 past Hawaii and eventually to the coast of Colombia, where each boat would attempt to reach the Gulf of Panama, where they would then launch their sirens armed with 850-kilogram bombs to attack the upper lock gate of the gate and locks on the Atlantic entrance of the canal. Interestingly enough, the planes were to group up after flying to the Atlantic and turning around towards the target. According to an Ensign Kazuo Takahashi, the mission was changed without the pilot's knowledge to become a kamikaze attack, and he recalled seeing the bomb release devices being removed from the aircraft. With the fall of Okinawa in June of 1945, the mission was entirely scrubbed and their mission changed to the American fleet at Ulithi Atoll under the codenames Hikari, meaning light, involving the I-13 and I-14, and Arashi, meaning storm, which were assigned to the I-400s. I-400 and I-401 were once again assigned a kamikaze mission, with the two submarines expected to arrive on the night of the 14th of August, and their aircraft would attempt a surprise attack. Prior to the mission, while taking on supplies at the Maizuru Naval Station, it is reported that the sirens were repainted to resemble American aircraft with an all-gray scheme and American roundels. On the 23rd of July, I-400 and I-401 set sail for Ulithi, where they were to rendezvous together, attempting to utilize remote areas of the Pacific to maximize their time cruising on the surface. During this journey, I-400 was unfortunate enough to suffer an electrical fire on the 5th of August, and despite being without power for hours, was able to return to their course. I-401 had attempted to contact I-400 at some point during their journey, however the latter did not receive the message, and on August 14th, I-400 found herself completely alone at the predetermined rendezvous point. On the 15th of August, both subs received orders to stand down and the mission was formally cancelled. Both subs would make their way back to the waters of mainland Japan, sailing on the surface while also under orders to dump all armaments and especially their aircraft. On I-400, instead of simply pushing them off the side, each aircraft was prepped for launch without their floats and catapulted off of the forward ramp. For I-401, the crews instead chose to just launch the planes with their bombs attached and wings still folded. Torpedoes, bombs, anti-aircraft ammunition, logbooks, codebooks, and other material were all disposed of overboard in order to not be captured. I-400 would surrender to American forces on the 27th of August without conflict. However, I-401's mission captain, Captain Arizumi, had no interest in cooperating with the Americans and attempted to scuttle while his navigation officer was negotiating. This order was not carried out, and the submarine was then escorted to Japan. During the voyage, the circumstances of Japan's loss, the failure of his mission, and the capture of his ship weighed on Arizumi, and following the standards for an officer, he shot himself in his quarters. I-402, having had no chance to go out on any mission due to being commissioned just a month prior to the end of the war, surrendered in Kure. Following the capture of all three I-400s, the United States Navy extensively inspected the submarines to understand their features. Due to the destruction of all documents, there was a lack of any diagrams to assist with understanding of the boats, and the Americans were forced to develop their own from inspections. Many inspectors noted the complexity of the submarine systems, however, criticized the crude nature of their radar systems. Despite the subs being put on public display in Hawaii, this was cut short due to the request by the Soviet Union to be given access to them for their own examinations. Wishing to not allow their new rival to have the knowledge to build these types of submarines, each was towed off the coast and scuttled. In 2005 and 2013, I-401 and I-400 were discovered at depths over 2,300 feet, 700 to 820 meters off the coast of Hawaii, respectively. In addition, one Seirin remains today in the World War II section of the Udvar-Hazy Center in Virginia alongside several other rare Japanese aircraft. While ultimately failing to achieve the dreams of Admiral Yamamoto to be the saviors of Japan by discouraging the United States from continuing the war, the I-400 class of submarines were, and still remain, marvels of engineering. These massive ships were the largest submarines in the world until the development of nuclear-powered ships, and still remain the only subs that can be truly called submersible aircraft carriers. While they could only carry 3 aircraft, these aircraft were not made for scouting, but for striking the enemy by surprise and disappearing before they even knew what happened. The legacy of the I-400 class remains to this day, as many continue to be fascinated with the idea of a massive submarine designed for aerial attacks on targets around the world. While not directly related, it could be said that aircraft carrier submarines live on in the form of the modern ballistic missile submarines, who themselves are capable of striking targets around the world with world-ending firepower. Being failures or not, the I-400 class will remain in the minds of historians and history fans alike for years to come, whether it be due to their enormous size or their status as the only true submersible carrier. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Be sure to also check out World of Warships Legends using that link in the description to get the special free bonus pack to get you started I mentioned earlier. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to check out some of the other videos on this channel, or if you'd like to see more Japanese wonder weapons, check out this video discussing the story of the 450mm rockets used against Allied land forces in the Pacific. Whatever your choice, we hope to see you back here for the next episode of Sails and Salvos.